Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about a question which is often tested on the boards. It's a very basic drug related question. Falls under the general principles / pharmacology section of the board. Often these kind of topics are avoided by students because they don't know where to really study for it, but these are easy questions, easy marks, and it's very important to understand them. So without further delay, let's get right into the question. So the question deals with something like this. So let's say, there is a bunch of rats. They're given two different kinds of drugs which creates the same effect, or which works, let's say asthma drugs. And drug A is an asthma drug, drug B is another asthma drug, and drug A is given 20 milligram per milliliter, and that produces 50% of its effect, while drug B is given 40 milligram per milliliter, and that produces 75% of its effect. Now the question is, it boils down to which one is more potent, or which one is more efficacious. So choosing between is drug A more potent than drug B, or drug A is more efficacious than drug B, or the other way around. So I'll give you a moment to think about it. Okay, so let's discuss it now that you had some time to think about it. Before we can jump right to the question, the first thing is not to get distracted by the outliers, all the description of the experiment. That is not important, that is not necessary. In order to recognize what they're really asking is very, very important, which I went straight into. They're asking if the drug is more potent or efficacious. So it's a potency and efficacy question. So before we can understand, or before we can answer this question, we have to understand what exactly is potency and what exactly is efficacy. So I'm gonna write some definitions here for your understanding. So this is potency and this is efficacy. What is potency? Potency is the dose required to produce 50% of a drug's maximal effect. Okay, so the dose I'm going to give to get to 50% of a drug's effect. And efficacy is regardless of dose, the maximum effect of a drug, regardless of its dose. So in this question, we realize that drug B is producing a greater effect at 40 milligram per milliliter, where drug A, but even though it's given less of a drug, it's only producing 50% of its effect. So in this question, it's hard to determine which drug is more potent than the other, because we are not basing our question on a 50% of its drug's maximal effect, or that is not our kind of fixed point from where we are thinking. They have two different percentages of the drug's maximum effect, so this is definitely not potency. They're asking which drug is more efficacious. Now we can see that in order to determine which one is more efficacious, the dose is not important. So right away we can completely ignore 20 and 40. They are not important at all, because dose is not important. The definition clearly says regardless of dose, maximal effect produced by a drug. That's it. Maximal effect produced by a drug regardless of dose. So we're not going to look at dose. As soon as we make the distinction, it's very easy. There's 50% and 70%. Which one is more? 75%. That's the one that's more. So I can say that's not potency, it's efficacy. So drug B is more efficacious than drug A. Okay, so let's do a review of this question from the beginning. Whenever we see these kind of drugs, the first thing we have to see is what is the percentage. If they're both 50%, then it's a different scenario, but they're not both 50%. If they were, we'd look into potency. As soon as we see they're both not 50%. We have to jump into efficacy. And then it's a matter of deciding which is the bigger number, which is very, very simple to do. Since we're talking about this, I'm going to quickly show a diagram which outlines what an efficacy diagram would look like. So it looks something like this. So we can see that in this diagram, I'm sorry it's the other way around in my question, I wasn't really relating this with that one. It's just one more diagram from a source. So we can see that drug B here is less efficacious than drug A because it has a higher curve. And we also have to remember that on the y-axis we have effect, and on the x-axis we have log dose. Or just think about it, on the x-axis we have dose. So regardless of dose, we're looking at the effect, which is pretty much the efficacy of a drug. Okay, that's about it. If you have any questions or comment, please leave me a message below. If you want to add anything to this question, or if you want to have any feedback, I'm very open to it. So yeah, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.